Hello, thank you so much for clicking on the Make It Better Media Group New Year, New You virtual event video. My name is Natasha. I am the virtual events coordinator here at Make It Better Media Group, and I'm just doing a quick intro to welcome you to our channel and to say thank you for tuning in. We have a lot of amazing events in 2021, and we're so proud of our first event with Barbara Waxman and Laura Sage, teaching you expert tips to become your best self. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's virtual event, New Year, New You, Expert Tips to Become Your Best Self with Barbara Waxman and Laura Sage. My name is Natasha. I am the marketing manager here at Make It Better Media Group, and I will be the woman behind the curtains helping to moderate today's event. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to reach out to me via the chat button. A few housekeeping points before we begin. At the end of the event, we will have a poll asking for your feedback about our event. Hopin is a new platform, and we would love to know your experience using it, as well as what else you would like to see from us in the future. There is also an Expo area where you can learn more about our sponsor, Juice Plus. You can access that by clicking the Expo icon located on the left tab of your screen. I am also joined today by Mimi Toll, the National Editorial Director here at Make It Better Media Group. Mimi will be introducing the speakers and facilitating the Q&A portion of our presentation. You can ask your questions via the chat button on the right side of your screen. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mimi.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you for setting everything up so beautifully. First of all, I love the topic, New Year, New You. I mean, after yesterday, what an amazing time for our country, regardless of your political views. It's time to reset. And we thought these two women would be ideal in helping all of us with some great tips. First of all, I will introduce Laura Sage, and excuse me, I'm going to read some of my notes so I don't get anything wrong. Laura Sage is the founder and CEO of Chill Anywhere. Their mission is to help people live less stressed and more mindful lives. Chill Anywhere works with businesses to offer mental wellness solutions, including mindfulness, meditation, and yoga classes anytime and anywhere. They provide custom video and on-demand content. Laura conceived of Chill while working 2 jobs, which I'm thinking many of you can relate to. She was the director at a hedge fund and the founder of a nonprofit organization that raises money for breast cancer researchers, the Lynn Sage Breast Cancer Foundation. Laura was looking for a healthy outlet and curious about meditation, so she sought to find a place that seemed approachable, secular, and not too esoteric to learn more. And thus, Chill Anywhere was born. So Laura, can you fill us in on how meditation might be able to help people this time in your journey?
I would love to. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Natasha and Mimi and Make It Better Media. I love your newsletters that we get in Chicago and Better Magazine, and I'm really grateful to be here with Barbara. So thank you for having me. So I'm going to be candid with the audience. I am a nervous speaker, and I usually tend to overscript and overpractice, and I'm trying something a little different this time, which is to speak a bit more extemporaneously. I wanted to share a little bit about my story and in the process extract 3 lessons that I'm hoping have helped me in the last 4 years or so since I started Chill, and maybe can help all of you as well. So I'm going to start with the punchline, the 3 lessons that I'm hoping to convey. If I hiccup, at least we'll get these out right away. One is how mindfulness has helped me and how it's such a simple thing, but I think it can also help you. The second lesson is that of self-compassion. And the third is that mental wellness should really be on the same plane as physical wellness. So I'm going to start telling my story, and maybe you can glean a little bit about how I learned these lessons. As Mimi mentioned, my background is in finance and philanthropy. So I have an undergraduate degree in economics, and then I got a master's degree in finance and marketing. And I actually used those degrees. I went to work for investment banks, and then I was an options trader. And for 11 years, from 2006 to 2017, I worked for a hedge fund. The hedge fund was based in Chicago, which is where I am right now in my hometown, and London. And I was a director, so I was mandated with raising money and then explaining to our investors how we allocated that capital. So what that meant is I would travel around the world. I'd travel about 100,000 miles a year to both Asia and Europe predominantly. But concurrent with that, I also had started a nonprofit organization named after my mom, Lynn Sage, who passed away from breast cancer when she was 39. And it's about a week before my 14th birthday. So I was a kid. Really, she was a kid as well when she passed away. So I had these two pretty high pressure full-time jobs, and I was stressed out all the time. I kind of felt like, my mouth was just above the waterline, and I was doing it for over a decade, but I was trying to find a better way to alleviate some of my stress and anxiety, because what was happening is I was drinking. I was going out socially every night, meeting with customers, and one drink led to two drinks, and I was completely functional, but that didn't feel good, both literally and figuratively. I had a cousin that used meditation and a lot of different meditation techniques, and he introduced me to mindfulness, and it really resonated with me. It was a really easy, accessible tool that I could lean into whenever I started to feel my anxiety level going up. So I'm going to take a step back here for a second from my personal story, because this is lesson number 1 about mindfulness. And I think that the best way to explain what mindfulness is just to give you its definition, but then also to maybe we'll all do just a really short little practice together. So I usually quote Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is considered the father of modern mindfulness. And the way he defines it is paying attention in the present moment in a particular way on purpose. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Paying attention in the present moment in a particular way on purpose. It's that easy. So if you don't mind, in the audience, if you could pick up one of your hands, rub your forefinger and thumb together for a second. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes and just trust me, we're only going to do this for 15 seconds. It will seem very long, but it won't be. So just close your eyes for a moment and I'll mind the clock. Okay, you can open your eyes, you can put down your hand. So we don't have an opportunity for me to hear your response, but usually that's a great grounding exercise. And we could talk about mindfulness for weeks, but just the idea of grounding yourself in the present moment tends to help a lot. Okay, so we'll go back to our story. So I fell in love with mindfulness. It really helped me personally. And I decided that I wanted to share mindfulness with Chicago. And so I did what anybody would do who had 2 jobs and was completely stressed out. I decided to add a third to my resume. So along with continuing to work at the hedge fund and running the nonprofit organization, I decided to open Chill. I would say this was Q2 of about Q2 of 2016, I got the idea. And by April of 2017, we had opened our doors. So that meant finding a location. We ultimately found a 4,000 square foot studio. It meant finding amazing guides because while now I am certified to be a guide, I am not a guide. It meant finding designers, coming up with a marketing plan, figuring out how to finance this business. But we got it done, and we got it done in time. So April of 2017, we opened our doors, and you know what happens? I completely freak out. I'm completely paralyzed with anxiety and frankly with self-loathe. I did not feel good about myself. I wondered what I had done. I wondered why I had put all of my money into an unproven concept, and I freaked out. And this is where we get to lesson number 2 about self-compassion. Self-compassion, and there are tons of studies on this, but if you're able to practice self-compassion, which I still need to work on, it is not easy for me, you will be more productive, you will be more self-confident, you will be more resilient, and you will have less stress and less depression. So suffice it to say for right now that it is a lesson that I am still practicing, but it is a very important thing to have in your arsenal. And the way I think about this is most of us, when we were raised, we were taught that we should teach others the way that we would like them to treat us. But I invert this a little bit. And I say to myself, I should treat myself the way that I treat people I care about the most. So for me, I have 2 younger sisters, and I obviously love them beyond belief. But I was treating myself in a way that was completely 180 degrees differently than I would treat my sisters. So that's the idea behind it. And embedded in self-compassion are a lot of Buddhist teachings, but it's about being thoughtful, it's about being mindful, and it's about being human. So that gets us to lesson number 2. So back to the story. Once I got over my pity party, because I had a team and a business in place, here's what happened. We opened our doors. We thought our focus was going to be on consumers and we were going to expand geographically, but we found out that businesses started flocking to us. And they were really diverse. They were everything from investment banks like JP Morgan to consulting companies like Deloitte, universities, hospitals. And so we decided to expand digitally. And that's when we started building Chill Anywhere, which Mimi had alluded to, which is our app. Then the pandemic hit. So what did we do then? We doubled down on digital. We actually closed our studio. We applied for federal grants. We cut our expenses. We continued to do work with businesses. And today we've worked with almost 400 different companies globally. And what we also did is we started partnering with universities. So we just recently applied for a research grant, and our partners are Northwestern University, Wake Forest, University of Michigan, and MD Anderson. And that gets me to my last point, which is, and I knew this, by the way, when I started Chill, but it just continues to be reinforced. Mental wellness, pre-pandemic and now even more, has got to be on the same plane as physical wellness. Now, I think we all probably know that they're intertwined, but the point that I want to emphasize today even more so, and I'm going to harken back to my experience with the Breast Cancer Foundation. For the Breast Cancer Foundation, when I started it over 20 years ago, I did care about awareness. I also cared about raising money for researchers. At the time, it wasn't necessarily comfortable in mixed company to talk about breast health. Today, I'm not worried about awareness. All I care about is finding money so that we can find a cure. Or what I often say is what I'd even prefer more is that people don't get sick with breast cancer. That would be amazing. So now let's go back to mental wellness. Mental wellness, we do still need to talk about awareness. It's getting better. Younger generations are much more comfortable talking about mental health than people my age and older. So I still care about awareness, but the amazing thing with mental wellness is there are prophylactic things that we can do. So we can avoid a lot of tragedy that happens when people get severely depressed and anxious. And so it makes me so much more optimistic, and it makes me want to be so much of an advocate, because I know that there are a lot of people that suffer with mental wellness that if they did something as simple as meditating every day, I'm not saying they'd be cured or they'd be perfect, but that it could be really preventative and help a lot of people not go into very severe, awful conditions. And I think with that, I'm going to stop talking. So thank you.
Oh, I wish you wouldn't. That's also interesting, but we can keep going when we do the Q&A and tie in the amazing research that you've learned with breast cancer research, as well as the mental health and wellness with meditation, because I think we'd all love to learn more. I'm going to introduce Barbara Waxman now, and Barbara's been in the magazine 2 different times, and I've loved watching her career just flourish. The first time I read the story, it was written by Laura Hilders, and I thought, wow, I love this concept of middlescence. And then I recently was able to interview Barbara. It's been maybe 4 or 5 years, and it's just taken off, and it's so exciting. So I'm going to read this list so you can tell I'm reading. I'm just admitting that here, but I wrote these notes early on so you can understand who Barbara is. She is a passionate advocate for aging, wisdom, and thriving personally and professionally. She's a creator of Entrepreneurship Turned Inward, which is a coaching model. She's the creator of the science-based 5 to Thrive Energy Quiz. And she's the author of 2 books examining aging, including most recently, The Middlescence Manifesto. She is an advisory council member for the Stanford Center on Longevity, as well as a faculty member at the Modern Elder Academy. She's an angel investor in the active aging and longevity space with women-led fund portfolio. And she's been recently featured on CBS This Morning. She's been featured in Marin magazine, and as well as the Arianna Huffington's Thrive Global and more. So without any further ado, Barbara, tell us about your research. Oh, and she recently just recorded a TED Talk, which will be airing soon. So she's got something we should listen to.
Now I know what I'm always so busy doing when I hear them. Thank you for that generous introduction. And I'm so glad to be here with all of you and to meet you, Laura. I love your story, and I'm going to try and see if I can integrate some of your points, which are so well taken and really important. So here we are. Welcome. It's a new year. It's bright. It's hopeful. And what I want to do in our short time together is twofold. First, I want to share some of the threads of the tapestry. If you think about your life like a tapestry with different colored threads, some are smooth and silky, some are knobby, and how they come together to form this woven, some areas are tight weave, some aren't, but this tapestry that makes up your life. So I'm going to share some threads from the story of my evolution, but the way I want you to think about it, hear it, to think, okay, after the call, if I think about the threads of my life, what does my tapestry look like now? So that's number one that I'll do. And then I'm going to just share a few tips. And then we'll open for questions so you can ask us anything you want. I've been in California for 35 years, but I am a New Yorker by birth, which means I'm both the creative, good listener, Californian, and at the end of the day, I want results for people and for myself, which is an interesting way to begin. The other part of my beginning has been that I have always had this passion, believe it or not, for aging. So when I was a child, I would go to nursing homes with my dad, and I loved it. I would wander the halls and people would say, "What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this?" And I'd get all this positive feedback. Never understood why people would be saying to me, "Why do you want to go there?" So I thought I was going to become a nursing home administrator. College, I studied perceptions of the elderly, worked my summers in nursing homes, then graduated and got into the real world and got some business experience and spent the next years doing consulting in aging related fields, assisted living, working for architects, nonprofits, you name it. And over time, people started asking me if I would coach them. This was around 20 years ago, when coaching was really just evolving. And the New Yorker in me thought coaching sounded really soft. I didn't know what it was. I was thinking, why would a CEO need a coach? So many of you are probably chuckling to yourself right now because you know what I didn't, which when I went back and looked at it, because so many people asked me to coach them, coaching is a powerful skill set that helps people not figure out their baggage, which is so important. That's therapy. But to say, okay, if I know I've got baggage, because we all do, and if I can think I can lift it in the overhead, then I have tools as a coach to help people take it on the road. So I started the Odyssey group in 2005, and things were going well, except my daughter was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And if any of you are parents, you know that you are only as happy as your least happy child. And my child was very sick, stopped everything. My father was passing away. Lots of lessons learned throughout all these journeys. Then I was diagnosed. So tapestry threads, some of the greatest learnings are not from my most awesome moments. They're from the painful times. And what came out of that is a real need and hunger that I had to understand energy, how to cultivate energy and health and vitality. So you might ask yourself, when you do think about your story, when you've had difficult times, what hunger has come out of it? What resolution has led you toward the next thing? So I have developed a body of work around understanding your energy, how to cultivate it, and how to use it. So Natasha, if you would put, so I don't have to take the time away, 5tothrivequiz.com, free quiz, 25 questions, take it online. So I started coaching. I had this coaching practice focused on adults, what I call midlife and better. I had this work around the 5 essential elements of cultivating your energy. And then I became an empty nester. And so this was in 2015, just 5 years ago. And at that point, my husband and I decided that gap years are wasted on the young. We should do it. So we were both still employed, but minimally. And we moved to Italy. We were living on a hillside in a 17th century stone cottage to figure out, at that time I was 53, what did we want to do when we grow up? We didn't figure that out because we enjoyed ourselves too much. But what we did is that we had the perspective. I was working on a book, which is now the Middlescence Manifesto. I ended up just writing a 50-page manifesto. It's on Amazon because I recognized all the threads, all the learnings showed that historically for over 100,000 years, we haven't really aged. We've died. People died at around the age of 38 for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And then it's only in the past 200 years, which is microscopic on the scale of life, that there are various interventions that came to be, and life took off like a rocket. So if you think about it this way, if you think back to the time of George Washington, why did they wear those white wigs? Think about, you've seen portraits. Why? Because at that time still, older people were rare. Anything that is scarce holds more value. Why are diamonds so special, right? Anything that is scarce holds more value. So we venerated the elderly. People, that's just one example, but it's one everyone can usually relate to. People took on the appearance to look like they were a sage. Laura, good last name. And now that's changed. Why? I won't go through all the nerdy history. I could. Because now we live, if we're college educated, if we don't smoke, if we have social connections in our life, you are bound to live to more than 80, 85 years. Very soon, within the next 80 years, life expectancy will be in the triple digits. So we have gone from this scarcity and valuing elderly to this shift that happened in the 1960s. My TED Talk launches January 30th. I talk about this a little bit more. It's called The Myth of the Midlife Crisis. In the 1960s, the phrase "don't trust anyone over 30" was coined, and we started to idolize youth. Now, I know I don't have to tell anyone on this call about it because we're all victims of it. We're also participants. We point ageist arrows at ourselves and one another when we hold ourselves back or, make fun of someone else for making some sort of big change. Another thing to think about in our tapestry, how do we shift this, especially as this new day dawns with a new government in place, a new year, a new vaccine? There is so much potential. So those are some of the threads of my story taking us to, I forgot to mention, when I was in Italy, what I call that is repotting, because I do want to have you think about this. How can you think about this year picking up your roots? It may not be physical. Not everyone can go to Italy, especially now. But it may be mentally. How do I pick up my roots, otherwise known as my thoughts, my habits, and have new soil, new kinds of people I'm talking to? How do I open my mind? I know in the last election, not this one, the last one, I didn't. I was shocked by the results. So, and I'm not even talking here about what side of the political spectrum. I'm talking about wherever you are. How do you pick up and repot so you can continue to be in fertile soil and to grow? Like Laura was talking about, I think it was her point number 3 about mental wellness. Here's what I'm finding is changing for people. When I point out we are not, most of us, in the business of tilling soil. We are not in the business of, most of us, construction, where we're using our physical bodies. We need to be physically fit and vital and healthy. However, most of us spend our days doing this kind of thing, thinking, leading, showing up in a certain way, and yet we give the tool that we need for that short shrift. So how can you think about investing and cultivating your energy, which much of it comes from right here between your ears? Okay, so I introduced Middlescence. The other thing I wanted to mention, the mental wellness and investing in that. Another great point that Laura made that I want to reiterate about self-compassion. This is your year. This is your year not to judge yourself. Make a commitment. Because we all have, I call them gremlins, sitting on our shoulders. They're those not so nice messengers saying, who do you think you are to do that? Who do you think you are to speak in front of 300 people? Or we need to learn how to shut those down. And I'm going to be launching some free tools because I do this with one-on-one clients and I'm trying to spread the work. But this self-compassion is exactly right. We need to say to ourselves, I'm human. If I mess up, I'll forgive myself, I'll survive. That's also in our tapestry. If you're here on this call, I'm trusting that you have enough years under your belt to know that you can trust yourself, that you will survive. So, okay, here are my tips. Number 1, I am hereby waving my magic wand and telling you you are no longer defined by a chronological number. Live and believe according to the stage of life you're in, not the age on your license. It is inconsequential. What do I mean by that? I have a friend who's actually a little older than me. Here I am. I have 3 children, 2 of whom one is married, one is getting married. They're all out of the house, employed, grown-ups, not to me, but they look at if you saw them. This friend of mine, I'm 58, she's 60. She just launched her twin daughters to college as freshmen. Completely different life stages, but we're relatively the same age. Your age no longer defines you. The only person who's going to let that happen is you. There are tools and tricks if you're interviewing for jobs about how to work with that, not against it. So number 1, live according to the stage you're in, not your chronological age. Number 2, this idea of a midlife crisis or aging out is just not true. What it is we have a new life stage called middlescence, where we're supposed to struggle. It's like a second adolescence. Our hormones change, our bodies morph, this time not in ways that are so awesome. Our relationships shift, and we have this identity questioning where we feel like, I'm not young, but I'm not old. Just like adolescence, we're supposed to struggle at this time. The question is, are you allowing yourself to sit with the struggle and unearth your wisdom to create your best plan? So stage, not age, middlescence is the new black. And then I want to say for this year, don't get stuck on purpose. So many of us are saying, okay, what is my purpose? What do I care about? What can I do? And they get stuck because it's such an important, lofty question. I'm also waving my magic wand and I'm freeing yourself from the purpose question. And here's what I suggest you focus on. Focus on joy and passion, especially during COVID, especially as we're trying to figure things out with our economy and all the strife. Do what brings you joy. I call this little p purpose. What brings you joy? Say yes. If every day you can do something, call a neighbor who you think might be lonely. Do something for someone else. Your big P purpose will emerge. But we get so stuck looking for sometimes what's right in front of us that we forget. Use joy and passion and the goodness that resides within you to lead you to a bigger purpose, if that's what you're looking for. And then finally, so we stay on time, I would say bring back the matriarchy. Here we are, a call. I'm guessing we're mostly women. You probably can't see, but my blouse says feminist. The matriarchy is such an important concept. We are the mothers of the world, literally. And it's time for us to own that term again. Reap all its benefits, of which there are many, the community that exists right here. So bring back the matriarchy this year and find your joy, and the world will be better for it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you both. I feel inspired. So there's Sue has asked or added a couple comments. Thank you so much. And she actually said a very good one here about mental wellness. She said it's sometimes an obstacle to mental wellness investment due to cost, and especially if you want one-on-one help with mental illness. And I know I've heard of friends who know of free services you can call, and sometimes your healthcare will provide free mental help, wellness help. Can you either of you recommend what to do for that doesn't cost so much if you need one-on-one help with mental wellness?
Well, what I can talk about is meditation and mindfulness and yoga, and that certainly is very accessible. And frankly, you could go look up Chill Anywhere's YouTube and get free access to some of our meditations. Our app is like $19.95 a month, and frankly, everybody on this call can have access to it for a month for free. We offer 2 weeks free on our website, which is chillanywhere.com, but you can email me at Laura@chillanywhere or info@chillanywhere, and we'll get you hooked up with a longer free subscription. In terms of one-on-one therapy, I don't have a good resource. I know that there's a group out of Chicago called No Shame on You, and I think it's a national organization. And that's where I would probably suggest somebody reach out if they're looking for assistance with counseling. I'm almost certain that they could get you directed to the right place.
There are also many nonprofit organizations who, particularly right now, are offering more and more sliding scale or free services to help people. So look in your community, and I'm guessing that it won't be too hard to find it.
Okay, great. I've got a question for Laura. They're coming in so fast. How did you break from the anxiety that overwhelmed you and thrive to transition to the Chill Anywhere app, especially during a pandemic? Work with 400 companies globally and then partner in universities. That was an incredible feat. What steps, sorry, I read that incorrectly. What steps did you take to accomplish all of this? I think what she's saying is the breakdown, that was a lot. And I probably on this call, a lot of women and men, if there's men, are doing multiple things right now, all trying to feel like, well, I don't want to let that go. I don't want to let that go. I want to keep going, and something will emerge as the one thing I do, or I do all of them if it makes me happy. But what steps? And I think, you were talking about possibly the meditation and learning. In your introduction, you said it was a secular thing you were looking for. And it made me think that a lot of people crave community and crave connection with people. So that might be part of that might be part of the steps you took. But I wanted to ask that as well.
So if I understand the question correctly, it almost seems like there are two parts. First of all, how did I get my act together enough to function?
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, how have we been able to find success in the midst of both being an entrepreneur, which I think is incredibly overrated, by the way, and in the midst of a pandemic. So maybe I'll start with the way I understand the beginning question. I used to joke, and I don't feel this way quite as much anymore, but that I was the most stressed out person in the meditation business. I've since learned from some of the doctors that I work with that there is a huge cohort of type A humans that decide to help promote meditation and mindfulness. So I'm probably not alone, but I didn't know that when I, opened our doors and really freaked out. But I did know about mindfulness and meditation, and I did lean into the practice a lot. So I had a really disciplined practice at that time. I still do, but I established a very consistent morning routine. And for me, it was important to do it in the morning because sometimes I would get distracted. So I always reminded myself of something that I was grateful for. And fortunately, I had many things to be grateful for. It wasn't a stretch for me to come up with those, but that immediately grounded me and reminded me that life isn't bad. And then I would take some time to meditate. And usually that would give me the attitude adjustment that I needed to persevere on with the day.
So
that's item one.
Two things. You did a morning ritual and then meditate. I would have just assumed the meditation was the ritual.
They were combined. So I did them both together
and
consistently.
And what was the ritual?
Well, the ritual was writing down what I was grateful for.
Okay, got it.
And I did it literally on my iPhone in the notes section because I didn't often reflect back on it, but the exercise of taking the time to put it on paper. Yeah. And then I would take some time to meditate.
And how long to meditate? Because I've heard you have to do 20 minutes, but I feel like, can you do?
No, I will tell everybody on this call, particularly people that haven't meditated before, start small. 2 minutes. I mean, we just did that exercise. That was less than a minute of me explaining it and you rubbing your fingers together.
That's true. It worked.
3 breaths, 3 intentional breaths is a legit meditation. So what I tell people is it's more important to have a consistent practice than to, I always say, don't binge meditate. To meditate 5 minutes a day for 7 consecutive days is much more powerful than meditating, let's say, once a week for 20 minutes.
That's actually great to know. I start 20 minutes and it's so hard. And then I start doing things on the side like, okay, I'm back. So
right. Well, which gets back to, for chill, we guide meditations. And for some people, it's easier to be able to listen to somebody telling you what to expect next or to give a suggestion of where your attention should be focused. But meditation can be free and you can do it yourself.
And then I know you've done a lot of research on the meditation and the mind. Is a guided meditation just as good as when you just sit there and breathe and try and think of a color? I mean, because I wonder about that. Like when I'm in a guided meditation, I'm just listening and sort of relaxing, and I feel like I'm almost cheating because it's so.
No. So the answer is, just as good gets into like a quantifiable answer. But there are loads of different types of meditation. So mindfulness is one type of meditation where we focus on the present. Yoga is actually a form of meditation, but it's moving meditation. My guess is a lot of people have heard of transcendental meditation. That's a type of meditation where you get a mantra. There are other types of meditation where you have a mantra, but it's not specific to the rule of transcendental meditation. My view is any type of meditation is good. Pick a type that resonates with you. And today you can do yoga, and tomorrow you can use a mantra, and the day after that you can use loving kindness. Different types of meditation stimulate different places in your brain. So if you're somebody that's struggling with compassion for others, it'd be suggested to do something along the lines of a loving kindness meditation. It'll help cultivate that. If you have more of a problem with stress and anxiety, you might want to do a visualization that helps you recollect a time when you didn't feel as anxious and as stressed. So I want to be careful and not say every type of meditation is identical, but I genuinely believe that they're all good. And more important than anything is just doing it.
That was a great breakdown. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's so cool. There's a question here I see for Barbara. And this is from Laura Griffiths. Thank you, Laura, for submitting the question. she would be interested in hearing tips from you, Barbara, on dealing with ageism when looking for a job. And all the gatekeepers, HR people, are 25 to 30 years old, younger than I am. And then if I get through the HR hoop, the team is all very young. And I know I personally have friends who are, I'm 54, they sort of are dealing with this as well. Or, ageism is something you had mentioned in an interview, how we do it more to ourselves than probably other people do to us. Like, we put those things in our head.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could
Great.
help Laura and the rest of us.
Yes.
With that question.
So it's a huge topic that's coming up more and more, which is a good thing. So let me try to share some nuggets that might be helpful. First of all, ageism is so ingrained. It's why someone like myself, until recently, I go and buy birthday cards that actually poke fun of people, right? I wouldn't do that about any of the other isms, but with ageism, somehow it's still fine. It's not okay because it gets into our psyche that who wants to be aging when it's like a joke and all these bad things are going to happen.
Uh-huh.
So we have to understand that we have this baseline of ageism. And yes, let's start at the interview process. Someone who is interviewing us does as well. But here's what happens. They have that in their head. So a lot of times you go into an interview and you're thinking, what do they want to know? And you know that something that you need to address subliminally with your words is how you show up. Please, 5tothrivecquiz.com. We've developed this all based on science. I just had a call with the CEO of the Buck Center for Research on Aging. 90% of our life expectancy and how we age is based on lifestyle choices we are making today, not genetics. Genetics plays less of a role than we've ever thought. So what do I mean by how you show up? You want to look your age, right? It's not that you're trying to look young, but when people will say to me very kindly, and maybe they're fibbing, Barbara, you look great you're what, 58? I'm like, no, this is what 58 looks like. Or they'll say you look whatever other age. I'm like, no, this is what 58 looks like. So go in there with your mojo going. If you don't have a theme song, get one. We all need a pump it up theme song. Literally, music gets to our soul. That's why you break down in tears in your car in the days when we would drive. Do those things that have you show up as your best self. Then what do you communicate? You're not going to specifically say, I hope you're not ageist, but what you're going to talk about is workplaces today have up to 4 generations working at the same time, and how you are a linchpin in that. You want to work with the multiple generations, and here's how. When I talk to millennials are actually hungry for our wisdom. They just don't know how to ask for it. They feel like they don't want to work for their mother or father. We feel like we don't want to babysit. Let's just call it what it is. In the interviews, you want to be able to address, here's what I see in the workplace. Be an aging expert without calling it out as such. So those two, how you show up and knowing that that's a mindset they have, and your job is to talk about how well you work with multiple generations. And then the final part is, it's been shown that older workers, 40s and older, are more committed and loyal. You want to talk about, in my career, I hope too, that you are generative. I saw in the chat, someone put, what does it mean to be generative? What do I mean on the quiz? Being generative means you're growing. It's a mindset. It's thinking strategically, not being in the weeds. So is that helpful? I don't want to take up too much time on the ageism, and I could still answer questions about it.
No, that was great. You brought up the song, and I loved that in the interview. And I thought about that also with the guided meditation. Do either of you know of any true research on your mind and your brain with music?
Yes. I mean, there is a ton of research that shows that something happens. Parker Palmer is kind of a modern day theologian, and he writes about music is like and art is the third way in. It's that it cuts right immediately to you, which is why when you're in fast food chains, they play a certain kind of music so people eat and get out faster. Don't fool yourself. When you're in other places, they play music to think about the movies.
Like Trader Joe's has the best music. I'm always happy in there.
Well, and they're trying to reach your demographic, our demographic. So music, there's tons of research showing the reactions and the synapses and how it pulls together the right side and the left side of the brain. So it's having music. I'm someone who likes silence when I'm working, but I'm always saying I should try it with music because it's very healthy to infuse. It's kind of like watering yourself. So music is a beautiful part of life, as is art. We don't have enough art and beauty in our lives, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
And nature. Nature is something that almost always grounds everybody.
Oh, nature?
Yeah, universally, people have a really great reaction to nature.
Yeah, there's, I'm sure you've heard of we did an article last year or the year before about forest bathing. And I thought, what a funny name for a concept of just hiking and being out in nature, but they lead hikes. In San Francisco out here in Marin, it's like, it's just walking in nature, but I think they must have a deeper, presence coming in, really taking it in and being still. But I love the thought of forest bathing. It's just bathing yourself in the forest.
Well, and back to sound, another thing that is used often for meditation is the concept of a sound bath. So whether it be a gong or bowls, oftentimes that can kind of get to a cellular level for people and help them relax in a way that they aren't able to otherwise. It's very powerful, sometimes too powerful for people. I love it.
Yeah, it is. So Katie Lane just added here that thank you, Katie. There's many resources through the Alzheimer's Association on tips for a healthy brain. And she gave the link here in the chat. And Barbara, you kind of mentioned the Buck Institute briefly that you spoke with, I'm not sure, was it Eric Verdin?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they do amazing research on the brain. And I don't know if you can share any of when I've read, stuff that comes from them, I think it's pretty simple. We can be healthy if we just pay attention to these markers. It's not necessarily what's your BMI or how healthy and fit and, if you can touch your toes. I mean, that's definitely part of it. But can you share anything that you have learned from them as far as a healthy brain?
Yeah. And let me share a resource. So the Buck Center for Research on Aging is a primary research center, meaning they do animal research, cellular research. Let me, if I may, share a resource that is probably more accessible to people here today. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar, or Mimi, are you familiar with Dan Buettner's work around the blue zones?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So
Amazing.
all what he talks about is substantiated by the research at the Buck Center. And for those of you who don't know, the blue zones are those places around the world that have the healthiest, longest lived populations. And so Dan Buettner travels and studied, and he tries to find the commonalities. Why is it? And so there are a few things that I'll share with you that I think come up a lot with people as they start a new year and have intentions or resolutions, whatever you call it. One has to do from Japan, where before people eat, elderly people, mostly now, younger people are more like us, busy, and they're not doing it. But you'll see them quietly sit, and before they eat, they say hara hachi bu. Hara hachi bu. And what that means is basically eat until you're 80% full. It's an intention that I'm going to consciously eat. Wow, what a concept, right?
Yeah.
Blue zones have the longest lived populations, and Eric Verdin and I were talking about this morning. Before COVID, I would say our national health crisis is social isolation. And it's not all people who live alone. There are so many people who are not alone, but they are like this in front of their computers, or they're gaming and they're gaming. So how do we build? And that's why in Little P Purpose, I say, maybe you have a neighbor who just you want to check on. It makes people, I have a busy life. I feel so good when someone checks in on me who isn't in my inner core. So blue zones and social isolation is something else that's come out of it. The other last point I'll make right now on this is we tend to think we got to hit the gym, right? We got to stay in shape. The healthiest lived populations don't go to the gym. Now, they're physically active. They tend to live in areas where they have to walk down hills. If they're in Asian communities, they're sitting on the floor and getting up. So these are people who are using their bodies as a tool in the course of life. They're not killing it in the gym. So the American way isn't necessarily, it's not about, like you were saying, just looking at killing it in the gym. It's how am I healthy? How do I breathe fresh air, bundle things, get fresh air, go with a friend for a walk? You are healthy in so many ways. You'll come back, make a healthy meal. And that's really the foundation for having a joyous life that will lead you to then having the purpose and meaning, if you're searching for it, that you need.
Yeah. So social isolation is a really great topic. And I was wondering with Laura, with your studios, do you find that people can do things on their own at any time, or else also you invite people to a class and is there is it popular for people to meditate together? That's, I guess, what I wanted to ask.
So it's an interesting topic because it's something that we're spending a lot of time on right now. Is we're going to program the app up. So we offer live sessions that you can take with others. And right now the guide and you can actually chat. So there is a sense of community, but I want to augment that. So I want to make it so, I'm making this up, but Natasha, Mimi, Barbara, and I, and maybe Sue can say, we're going to meditate together. And really, even if we're doing it remotely on our computers or on our phones, we will be able to have a sense of community and accountability and shared goals. So I'm spending a lot of time talking to my team about how we can create that community so that even if we can't all be in a room together, we can still feel as one and have a bond. Because exactly what Barbara said and what you said, loneliness was extremely prevalent even before this pandemic. And there's been a lot of research that's been done on it, and they say that it's worse than, I think it's smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day. I mean, it's not just bad here, but the detriment becomes manifest in your body. And so people are feeling that. And it's sometimes because they're legitimately isolated, and other times just because, we've talked about the fact that I'm a bit of an introvert. So for whatever people's reasons are, they're not getting it. It's probably got to do with cell phones, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's a way that we can create community, and that's where I've spent a lot of time thinking about it in particular as of late, but we'd always had this thought when we opened as a physical studio. People aren't going to religious services as much, getting that sense of community. How can we provide it to people? We're secular, as we talked about. Our point is to be inclusive and to make everybody feel welcome. How can we do that? And now how can we do that digitally?
Yeah, cool. I love that. I do think that sense of community, I grew up always going to church. I don't anymore, but I love that feeling of being connected and, getting a donut or whatever at the end. Like it all felt so like complete. And then you just would go on with the rest of your day. And I know our world doesn't have as much of that anymore. And
well, and also, if you think of the corporate setting, that's probably been forever changed. People now realize that despite working remotely, productivity hasn't diminished. So perhaps at the other side of this pandemic, the statistic I just recently heard from a professor at the University of Toronto is previously about 5% of the workforce was remote. He expects it to become 20 to 30%. So still not a majority, but that's a monumental number.
Yeah.
How do you as a business continue to cultivate that type of community when the analogy that's always used is the water cooler? You're going to lose out on that water cooler chit chat or gossip. And so that's, again, where we're trying to find a way to help. It could be a business, but feel like we're doing this collectively. We're going to share this experience together and have an opportunity to discuss it. It's really essential.
Yeah, that's you bring up a great point, and I just read something about how people are so zoomed out, and we're on a similar thing now. But with work on this, you're constantly like present, and in a little box in a square, and then you kind of, it takes a while to then get your creativity back so you can do your job.
Yep.
So I think we're in an interesting time of remote work, trying to figure out how it all works. So I think we've just got 5 more minutes in the hour, and both of you, I'm not sure if you have any last words, but the combination of mindfulness and meditation, and then life or career coaching, and kind of, Barbara, the reading more about and listening. You can find on YouTube both Chill Anywhere as well as Barbara. She's doing some talks, including a TED Talk coming up. It's just really inspiring. You'll just give me these little nuggets that remind me, like, oh wait, that's me talking about I can't do this. I can do this. I've got many, the blue zones. I've got Sardinia are my people. So I should be around for a lot longer. And as hopefully, everybody, we've all got a lot to do. And my point is, you both have great tips to help us
Thank you.
do our best. And just feel connected, and not expect too much, in a way. Like I think you were saying, Laura, just be happy and like take a note on what you need to be. Don't set yourself up for failure by having too big of a list of things to do. So thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there she is.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Laura and Barbara, for coming on today. It's been amazing hearing you. Even when I wasn't on screen, I was nodding my head like, yes, it just resonates so much with it. And this is the important information that everyone needs to hear right now. So I'm very grateful that you were able to join us. And I'm very grateful to everyone who was able to also join us today. This is amazing. Yeah, what an incredible conversation. So I'm very appreciative. And if you have a moment, please go ahead and hop over to the events tab, and we have our polls ready. But otherwise, stay tuned. We'll have a recording of this virtual event, and we'll send it out in an email tomorrow. And we have a bunch of exciting virtual events for 2021, right. So stay tuned.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much for watching Make It Better Media Group's first virtual event of 2021. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and like and share. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. We have an amazing list of events we're putting out in 2021. And in the meantime, let's stay connected. I'll put all of our social links in the description box below, and be sure to sign up for our newsletter. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one.